Kara always remembered the exact time because the dashcam timestamp made it impossible to forget. 11:47 p.m. It was a Thursday night, a kind where the city felt tired instead of alive. Kara drove rideshare after her office job, mostly to pay down a credit card and keep her weekends free. Nothing about that night felt special until the request came through with an address that didn't look real. Route 17, mile marker 42. No street name, no apartment number, just a highway marker. Kara assumed it was a prank, but the app showed a decent fare and a 5-star rider rating. She figured it might be someone stranded with a dead phone using a friend's account. It happened. She drove out past the last strip of gas stations and into the darker stretch where the trees swallowed the road. The GPS didn't guide her to a driveway. It guided her to a point on the shoulder, like it was marking a location where something had once been. When Kara pulled over, her headlights hit a narrow break in the tree line. Not a road, not a driveway, just an opening like someone had walked through the brush enough times to make a path. Then she saw him. A man stood near the edge of the light, facing the woods as if he'd been waiting for something to step out. He wasn't waving. He wasn't looking at the car. He was just standing there, still, hands at his sides, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans like he'd dressed to blend into the night. Kara didn't unlock the doors. She cracked the window a little and asked his name, like the app taught drivers to do. He turned slowly, looked at her windshield and said, "Mason." The voice sounded normal. The name matched the screen. Kara unlocked the back door. He slid in without a word, shutting the door gently, like he knew loud sounds didn't belong out here. Kara checked her mirror. She could see the edge of his face under the hood, pale, tired, and dry, like he'd been walking for a long time. "Where to?" she asked, already knowing the destination from the app. He didn't answer. Kara glanced down. The destination had loaded. Cedar Hollow Motel. Her stomach tightened. Cedar Hollow was a place locals joked about. A motel that stayed open despite being half empty all year. People said it wasn't dangerous, just wrong. Like it existed slightly out of step with everything else. Kara forced her voice steady. "Okay, Cedar Hollow." She pulled back onto Route 17. For the first minute, the car was normal. Engine hum, wipers swishing, soft road noise. Mason sat quietly behind her, not shifting, not coughing, not even clearing his throat. Kara tried to make polite small talk. "You okay back there?" He answered after a long pause. Yes, just one word. Flat. Kara told herself he was tired. Maybe he'd had a bad night. Maybe he'd been stranded. Then her phone mounted near the dashboard buzzed with a ride notification. Not a new request. A message attached to the current trip. Rider message. Don't let him change the route. Kara's hands tightened on the wheel. She glanced at the screen again. The message had no name attached. Just rider. Her first thought was that Mason had sent it. A weird joke. But if he'd sent it, why would it say him? Kara checked the rear-view mirror. Mason was looking straight ahead, not at her, not at the phone. He was watching the road like he was waiting for a sign. Kara didn't realize it yet, but that message wasn't a warning about Mason. It was a warning about what Cedar Hollow did to people once they arrived. The GPS spoke in its calm voice. In 1 mile, take the next exit. Mason finally moved. Don't take the exit, he said. Kara's heart kicked hard once. The app clearly showed the motel was off that exit. It was the only way. Kara tried to laugh, casual, like it didn't matter. It's the route, Mason. He leaned forward slightly, enough that Kara felt the presence of him behind her seat. Don't take the exit, he repeated. Same tone, same calm. Kara swallowed. She did not like how sure he sounded. The GPS repeated, take the next exit. Kara signaled. Mason's voice came again, softer. Please. Something about the word please made it worse. like he wasn't commanding her, like he was begging her not to do something he already knew would happen. Kara took the exit anyway. The off-ramp dropped into darkness fast. The streetlights ended halfway down, leaving only her headlights and the reflective paint on the road. At the bottom of the ramp, the motel sign appeared. Cedar Hollow Motel. Only the word hollow flickered, like the sign couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Kara drove toward it, and the building came into view. Low, long, old. Rows of doors facing the parking lot. Curtains closed. A few dim lights on. And yet, the lot was empty. No cars, no people. Just her vehicle and the sound of rain. Mason shifted again. "Stop here," he said. He pointed not toward the front office, but toward the far end of the lot where the last room sat half in shadow. Room 17. Kara looked down at the app. It said drop off at the front office. But the blue pin on the map, without her touching anything, slid across the screen. It moved from the office to the far end of the lot. To room 17. Kara's breath turned shallow. The app wasn't glitching. It was obeying something. Mason opened the door before she fully stopped. He stepped out into the rain, turned once, and looked at Kara through the window. His face was more visible now, calm, almost relieved. Then he said something that made Kara feel cold all the way down to her bones. "If you see the light, turn off. Don't look back." And then he walked toward room 17, like he'd been there before. Kara stayed in the car. She told herself to end the ride and drive away. She told herself nothing about this was her problem. But her phone buzzed again. Rider message. "If he goes inside, don't leave yet." Kara stared at the message. Then she stared at the motel. Mason reached room 17. He stood at the door, hand raised to knock. The porch light above that door turned off. No flicker, no warning, just off. And for a split second, Kara saw something in the dark window of the room. Not Mason. A face behind the glass, close enough to be pressed near it, smiling like it had been waiting for him. Kara did not scream. She didn't even move at first. Her body did that thing it does in real fear, where it freezes while the mind scrambles to explain what it just saw. Maybe it was a curtain. Maybe it was a reflection. Maybe it was her own dashboard light. And Mason knocked once. The motel stayed silent. No lobby bell. No door opening. No footsteps inside. Just rain and that dead parking lot. Mason knocked again. The porch light above room 17 clicked back on. Warm yellow for a second. And then it flickered like a heartbeat before steadying. Mason tried the doorknob. It opened. Kara's phone buzzed again. A rider message appeared, "Now." That single word made Kara's stomach drop, because she knew what now meant. It meant she was supposed to do something. Kara cracked her window and called out, "Hey, Mason, the ride says front office." Mason paused in the doorway. He didn't turn fully, just enough for Kara to see the side of his face. He looked like a man listening to someone whispering right beside his ear. Then he stepped inside. The door closed behind him without a slam, without a click. It just shut. Kara stared at the door, waiting for any normal sign of a person moving inside. Nothing. The curtains didn't shift. The window didn't change. The porch light remained on, steady, innocent. Kara reached for her phone with shaking fingers and hit the emergency button inside the driver app. Not the police. Just the safety line. The screen loaded, then froze, then returned to the trip page like she'd never touched it. Her signal bars dropped from 3 to 1. Kara tried to end the ride. The end trip button grayed out. A small spinning circle appeared under it, like the app was waiting for something else to finish first. Kara was still sitting in her car, but the system had already decided she wasn't allowed to leave. She forced herself to breathe slowly, then looked around the lot. That's when she noticed something she hadn't noticed before. The motel had more doors than it should. The row closest to her was normal enough. Door numbers, peeling paint, cheap curtains. But the far end, the end with room 17 looked longer, like the building stretched past where it should have ended, like there were extra rooms hiding in the darkness, continuing beyond the last visible corner. Kara turned her high beams toward it. The light didn't reach the end. It stopped short, swallowed by the shape of the building. Kara told herself she was done with this. She could just drive, app or no app. She could leave the phone behind and go. She put the car in reverse. The camera display came on, showing the lot behind her. Except the screen was wrong. The lot behind her looked brighter than it should, and the building behind her was not the motel. It was a hallway. A long hallway with doors on both sides, lit by weak yellow lights. Kara slammed the brakes and blinked hard. She looked up. She was still in the parking lot, but on her reverse camera, she was somewhere else entirely. She put the car back in park. The reverse camera went black. She whispered, "No." Her phone buzzed again. Rider message. Room 17 is not his room. Kara felt her heartbeat in her throat. Not his room? Then why did he go in? Kara forced herself out of the car. Keeping the keys in her hand like that mattered. Rain hit her face immediately, cold and real. She walked toward the front office because that was the only normal thing left to do. The office door was unlocked. Inside, the air was warmer but stale. A desk sat empty. An old bell. A rack of key tags with faded numbers. No clerk. No sound. Kara called out, "Hello?" Her voice sounded too loud in the quiet. A small TV behind the desk was on, playing static. As Kara stepped closer, the static shifted, and for a moment she saw a security camera view, not of the office. Of room 17, Mason was standing inside, facing the far wall. The room behind him looked wrong, bigger than it should, like it extended deeper than the building's shape allowed. And he wasn't alone. Something was behind him, just out of the camera's focus, a shape that kept drifting in and out like heat waves. Kara leaned closer to the screen. The image glitched. Then a line of text appeared over the camera feed, as if the TV had become part of a system. Guest check-in, pending. Then beneath it, name, Mason. Then a second line appeared. Additional guest, Kara. Kara stepped back so fast, she bumped the desk. The motel wasn't just watching. It was registering her. Kara grabbed one of the key tags from the rack, anything that felt like a tool, and rushed back outside. Room 17's porch light was off again. This time, it stayed off. Kara stood in the rain, staring at the door. She wanted to run to it. She wanted to drag Mason out. But she remembered his warning. If you see the light turn off, don't look back. Kara didn't understand the don't look back part, but she understood enough to keep her eyes on the door and not the windows behind her. She took a step closer. The motel was silent. No distant highway sound. No birds. No wind. Only rain and the faint hum of something electrical under the building. Kara reached the door. She placed her hand on the knob. It was warm, not from the weather. Warm like a living thing. Kara whispered, "Mason." From inside the room, she heard a soft sound. Not footsteps, not breathing. A polite knock. From the inside, 3 taps. Like someone on the other side of the door was asking to be let out, but the taps were not coming from where Mason would be. They were coming from the bathroom door inside the room. And then Kara's phone vibrated in her palm. The screen lit up. A final message. Rider message. If it answers your name, you're next. Kara did not open the door. And that simple decision, that single moment of hesitation, saved her, at least for the moment. She backed away slowly from room 17, her eyes glued to the dark wood of the door. It felt like if she looked away, even for a second, she'd be giving the motel permission to change. to rearrange itself into something even more twisted. Her mind was a frantic mess, thoughts tripping over each other. Call for help. Just leave. Get in the car and honk the horn until anyone, hears. Get back on the highway and just drive. But the parking lot was a deserted, rain-slicked void. The downpour was so heavy, it seemed to swallow sound before it could even travel more than a few feet. There was nowhere to go but back to the one place that felt even slightly normal, slightly grounded in the world she used to know, the front office. She returned, the bell on the door making a dead, tinny jingle. It was the only place that felt real. Behind the counter, sitting next to an ancient computer, was a landline phone. Hope surged through her. A real physical connection to the outside world. She grabbed the heavy plastic receiver, the cord stretching like a lifeline, and frantically dialed 911. The line clicked. Then, a voice answered, not an operator. It was a recorded voice, eerily calm, with the polished tone of a customer service automated menu. You have reached Cedar Hollow Guest Services. For immediate assistance, please return to your room. Kara slammed the phone down, her hand trembling. She stared at it, this object of betrayal. It was part of the trap. She fumbled for her cell phone again, desperation clawing at her throat. Still no signal, not even a single fleeting bar. The screen was a black, useless mirror. Behind the desk, a small TV that had been hissing with static suddenly flickered. The fuzzy gray snow shifted, coalescing into an image. It was a security camera feed. It showed room 17. The angle was strange, distorted, making the hallway outside the door look impossibly long, stretching into a dark, warped perspective. And then she saw him. Mason was inside the room. He was standing near the foot of the unmade bed, his back to the camera, facing the far wall. His posture was stiff, unnatural. It wasn't the posture of someone relaxed, but it also wasn't the posture of someone panicked. It was the stance of a person waiting for instructions. As she watched, a line of stark white text appeared over the grainy camera feed. Like the old television had suddenly become a part of the motel's sinister operating system. Guest check-in. Pending. Kara's breath hitched. Then, another line appeared directly below it. Name. Mason. She held her breath, a cold dread creeping up her spine. The screen updated again, the letters typing themselves out with a horrifying finality. Additional guest. Kara. Kara stumbled back from the TV, a gasp escaping her lips. Her first instinct was to deny it, to mentally reject it like a spam notification you just swipe away. This is a mistake. This isn't happening. But the motel, this place, it didn't care what she believed. It had its own rules, its own reality. On the worn wooden counter, something caught her eye. An old guest book. It was thick and swollen, the cover warped by years of damp, stagnant air. She reached for it, her fingers hesitating for a moment before she flipped it open. Page after dusty page was filled with names and dates, a history of souls who had passed through this place. At first, it looked normal, just like any guest book from a rundown, low-budget motel on the side of a forgotten highway. Then Kara saw the pattern. A name would appear, written in cursive or a hurried scrawl. Then several pages later, the same name would appear again. John Smith, October 12, 1998. Then, John Smith, October 12, 1999. Same name, different date. Always, exactly 1 year apart to the day. And beside those repeated names, someone had written a small, chilling note in the margin. The ink was faded, but the word was clear. Returned. Kara flipped faster, her fingers sticking to the slightly damp, ancient paper. More repeats. Sarah Jenkins. Returned. David Chun. Returned. It was a ledger of ghosts, a logbook of the damned. And then Kara found the name that made her stomach drop, the name that turned the cold dread into icy terror. Mason. once dated last year, written in his familiar, slightly sloppy handwriting, and again dated tonight. The same handwriting, the exact same signature, and written in the corner, a time, 3:03 a.m. Kara's eyes darted to the large, round clock hanging behind the desk. Its hands were ticking with an agonizing slowness. 2:58 a.m. 5 minutes. She didn't understand why that specific time was so important. What would happen at 3:03 a.m.? But her body understood it on a primal level. Every muscle in her body tightened, coiling like a spring. A silent countdown had started, and she was at the heart of it. Her gaze snapped back to the security camera feed on the TV screen. The image was the same, but different. Mason had moved. He was no longer staring blankly at the wall. He had turned slowly and was now looking directly toward the bathroom door within his room. His lips moved, but the camera had no sound. It was just a grainy, silent feed from the security monitor. Kara leaned closer, trying to decipher what she was seeing. She realized he wasn't speaking in sentences. He wasn't trying to communicate. He was counting. 1, 2, 3. Then he'd pause and start again. 1, 2, 3. Kara didn't know what Mason was counting, but she could tell from the rigid set of his jaw and the hollow look in his eyes that he wasn't choosing to do it. It was a compulsion, something forced upon him. Kara tore her eyes away from the screen and searched behind the reception desk for anything useful. A flashlight, a radio, keys, anything that could give her an advantage, a way out. She found a large wooden board covered in hooks, a rack of key tags dangling from them. The room numbers were faded, etched into cheap plastic years ago. Some tags were missing entirely, leaving empty hooks like gaps in a row of teeth. But one tag immediately stood out. It wasn't labeled at all. No number, no letters. Just a blank, smooth metal tag, heavier and colder than the others. Kara hesitated, her fingers hovering just above it. Then, against her better judgment, she touched it. The tag felt heavier than it should, impossibly dense. Like it carried more than just its own metallic weight. It felt like it carried a history, a purpose. The moment her skin made contact, the TV monitor flickered. The security feed of Mason vanished, replaced by the same bold white text as before. Assignment updated. Room 17. Additional guest. Kara. Kara snatched her hand back, dropping the tag as if it were burning hot. It clattered onto the linoleum floor with a sound that was too loud in the silent office. Her hands shook uncontrollably. She finally understood. This place, this motel, it wasn't waiting for her to find a key and open a door. It was waiting for her to accept the role it had assigned her. And it was using these small, ordinary actions to trick her into compliance. Touching the tag, standing in the office, reading the book left on the counter. Each step felt harmless and insignificant on its own, but together they formed a path, a sequence she was being forced to walk. Kara backed away from the counter, her heart hammering against her ribs. She forced herself to think, to push past the rising panic. This wasn't just a haunted place. It was a system. And if it was a system, then it had to have rules, logic, a structure. And rules meant there was a correct move, a way to win, or at least a way to not lose. Even if it was hidden, buried beneath layers of dread and confusion. She needed to get out of the office. Kara stepped outside again, back into the relentless downpour. The cold rain hit her face, a shocking jolt that helped clear her head. She stared toward the far end of the building, where the row of numbered rooms stretched into the darkness. It looked longer than before. Not dramatically, not in a way that defied physics, but just enough to make Kara doubt her own memory. It was a subtle, insidious change, as if the motel could stretch itself whenever it needed more space, adding rooms like new lines of code. She walked slowly along the edge of the parking lot, her sneakers squelching in the waterlogged asphalt. Her eyes stayed fixed on the doors, not the windows. She kept remembering Mason's warning, his voice urgent and desperate on the phone. "If you see the light turn off, don't look back." Kara didn't understand why that mattered, what she might see if she did, but she obeyed it anyway. Fear was a powerful motivator. Near the side of the building, half hidden by a thick curtain of overgrown vines, Kara noticed a plain, unmarked maintenance door. It didn't look like a guest entrance. It was utilitarian, painted a drab gray, the kind of door staff would use. The kind of door meant to be ignored. She reached for the handle, expecting it to be locked, but it turned easily in her hand. The door was unlocked. Kara opened it, revealing a narrow stairwell leading down into blackness. A rush of cool air rose from below, carrying that same odd smell she'd noticed earlier. It wasn't cleaning products. It wasn't mold or mildew. It was something cloyingly sweet, mixed with something stale and metallic, like old coins. Taking a deep breath, Kara descended the concrete steps, one hand trailing along the damp, cool wall. At the bottom was a long concrete hallway. Old, rust-streaked pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping rhythmically. The only light came from small, recessed fixtures glowing near the floor, casting long, distorted shadows. And there were doors, not room doors. These were heavy, office-style doors with frosted glass panels and metal plaques. Transfer, records, holding. Kara moved slowly, her footsteps echoing in the subterranean corridor. She read each label, her mind racing, trying to understand what this place really was. This wasn't a motel basement. It was something else entirely. A processing center? A strange, forgotten bureaucracy? At the far end of the hall was one last door. Its label looked newer than the others, the lettering crisp and clean, as if someone had replaced it recently. It read, "Return." Kara stepped closer, a cold dread washing over her. She pressed her ear against the cool wood of the door, and she heard it. From the other side, she heard Mason's voice again, not speaking normally, not crying for help. He was counting. 1, 2, 3. And beneath his rhythmic, monotone voice, she heard another sound. A soft, electronic tone, like a polite notification chime. The sound of a check-in being completed. In that instant, everything clicked into place. The motel wasn't trying to scare people, not in the traditional sense. It wasn't a ghost story. It was trying to complete a routine. It was processing something or someone. Kara backed away from the return door and looked at the hallway again, seeing it with new eyes. This wasn't a normal motel. It was an overflow system. A place built to manage people who didn't fit neatly into schedules. People who had missed their appointments with fate. A place that had learned how to keep its own strange, terrible records. Kara turned and hurried back up the stairs, her mind a whirlwind of terror and revelation. She burst back into the office, soaked and shivering. The old digital clock on the wall behind the counter glowed with red numbers. 3:01 a.m. 2 minutes left. She had 2 minutes until 3:03. If that time was the moment the system finished its process, the moment Mason's check-in was finalized, she had to interrupt it. Not with force, not by breaking down a door. She had to do it with the correct step. She had to follow the rules to break the rules. Because in a place like the Cedar Hollow Motel, the only thing scarier than the rules was what happened when the rules finished without you. Kara ran back into the office, rain dripping from her jacket and forming small pools on the tile floor. The clock on the wall read 3:01 a.m., 2 minutes. She didn't know why that time mattered, only that everything in this bizarre motel seemed to revolve around it. The guest book still lay open on the counter, a silent witness. Mason's name appeared once last year and once tonight. But now, under the dim, flickering light, Kara noticed something she had missed before. Beside the older entry, written so faintly in pencil it was almost a ghost, were 2 words: checkout not completed. A cold realization settled deep in her chest, heavy and certain. Mason hadn't been brought back randomly. He wasn't some random phantom. He had been returned, summoned back to this place, because something about his previous stay had never been finished. This wasn't a haunted place, not in the traditional sense. There were no vengeful spirits, no ancient curses. This was something different, something colder. It was a broken system, a glitch in reality, stuck in a loop and repeating the same task over and over again. Driven by this new understanding, Kara searched the front desk again, her hands moving with frantic purpose. She found a stack of old paper receipts held together with a single rusted clip. Most were faded beyond recognition. The ink bled into meaningless smudges. But one, just one, still showed details clear as day. Room 17. Check-in, 11:47 p.m. checkout. A blank, empty line. It was the exact same time Mason's ride request had come through on her phone. Kara finally understood. The motel wasn't trying to keep him, to trap him. It was trying to complete the record. It was trying to close the books. And rang it twice, just like the faded instruction card underneath had said. At first, nothing happened. The silence in the office was absolute, broken only by the sound of the rain outside. Then, the old television monitor behind the counter flickered to life, showing the grainy, black and white feed from the camera inside room 17. And there he was, Mason. He was standing near the door, staring at the handle as if he'd never seen one before, like he couldn't remember how it worked. He looked lost, trapped not by a ghost, but by his own confusion. Without a second thought, Kara ran back outside into the storm. The single porch light above room 17 went dark the moment she stepped closer, plunging the walkway into near total blackness. But she forced herself to keep moving, her heart pounding against her ribs. She reached the door and knocked once, a sharp, clear sound against the wood. "Mason, open the door," she said, her voice steady but firm, betraying none of the fear that was coursing through her. There was a long pause, a moment stretched thin by the storm. Then a soft click. The lock turned. Mason opened the door slowly, his face pale and disoriented, but his eyes were clear. He looked awake. "Why are we still here?" he asked, his voice raspy. Kara didn't answer. There were no words to explain the cosmic bureaucracy they had stumbled into. She simply took his arm and led him toward her car, away from the room, away from the motel. As they crossed the cracked asphalt of the parking lot, the motel's lights flickered once, then steadied, burning with a strange new consistency. Nothing followed them. When Kara started the engine, her phone buzzed with a notification. A simple, mundane message that felt anything but. Trip updated. Destination completed. She drove Mason to a busy, brightly lit truck stop 30 miles down the highway, a place where the lights, the noise, and the people made everything feel solid and normal again. Mason sat in silence the entire time, staring out the window, trying to piece together memories that didn't quite fit, like a puzzle with missing pieces. Before getting out, he turned to her and said quietly, "I think I stayed there last year. I never left properly." "That place keeps records," she said, "and it doesn't forget the unfinished ones." The trip was listed, the fare was paid, everything looked normal. But under the passenger name, it didn't say Mason anymore. It simply said, "Guest checked out." Kara stopped driving late nights after that. She avoided the empty highways and the old motels with their flickering, desperate signs, because she understood something that most people never would. Some places aren't dangerous because of what's inside them. They're dangerous because they are still waiting, patiently, for something to be finished. And somewhere out there, along Route 17, a motel with a broken neon sign still glows through the rain. It isn't trying to attract new guests. It's just trying to remind the ones who forgot to check out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the strange side of the road. Stay safe out there.